Today, especially I want to do a little shout out. This month is October National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And so let's see, the time is 1:32. And before we get started, I just want to remind everybody to please turn off your cell phones and limit any background noise if needed. And yeah, we can jump right into the roll call. So this is for any member that is calling in or is currently on screen. And I want to actually start off with three of our newest members. I'll kick it over to Cynthia. And please state here or present, and then state what organization you were with when I call your name, please. But please, Cynthia, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Cindy Pasco. I'm here. And as far as organization, I think I'm just a citizen. I mean, I belong to some group, GDB, Guidance for the Blind. But other than that, I'm just a regular citizen.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Cindy. It's wonderful to virtually meet you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we'll go to Sarah.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Luna, and I am representing the National Federation of the Blind of Illinois, Chicago chapter. Glad to be here.
Thank you, Sarah. It's a pleasure to meet you as well.
Likewise.
Thank you. And then we'll go over to Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura Saltzman, representing Access Living, Metropolitan Chicago, Chicago Center for Independent Living, and a disability rights organization.
Thank you so much, Laura, and as well as wonderful to meet you. And then now we're going to go into existing members. I'll just name people to just keep it a little bit more efficient. So I'll kick it over to Mary.
I'm Mary Abramson, and I'm representing myself and just generally the visually impaired and blind community.
Thank you, Mary. Next is Doreen.
Doreen Bogus, City of Chicago Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities.
Thank you, Doreen. And then, thank you. And then it looks like Robin Jones. I'm not sure if she's on the call.
Yep, I'm here. Yep.
Wonderful.
Hi, Robin Jones, Great Lakes ADA Center.
Thank you so much, Robin. And Michael? Oops. Might have, I thought I saw him on the call a little bit earlier. Might have stepped away for a second.
Michael, you're just muted. You're still muted, Michael.
Sorry. Okay, once more. I'm Michael Kaiser, and I am an attorney who represents special needs kids for school services. And I also, two of our kids are seniors in high school, and they have very significant physical disabilities.
Thank you so much, Michael. And then Nicholas.
Nicholas Robertson as present, and I'm representing the blind population of Illinois and do take ridership information from veterans since I work at the Department of Veterans Affairs, but I don't officially represent that cross-section of the disabled community, but would be remiss if I didn't take ridership information from whoever gives it to me. Thank you for joining this meeting, Whitney.
Hey, thank you so much, Nicholas. Thank you for attending. Thank you. And then last we got Howard. And I'm actually just double checking because I'm not sure if he is with us yet.
I think Robin is here though. I think I saw her.
Yes, Robin already went.
Yeah, and Whitney and Irma, I'll just say Howard's not on. but Whitney, don't let the time go by without introducing yourself too.
Of course, yes. Thank you so much for the reminder. Yes, my name is Whitney Hill, and I'm representing SPORC, a local nonprofit for people with disabilities, creatives with disabilities, and LCM architects. And I can, and I'll kick it along over to the CTA facilitators. Irma?
I'll actually like to mention Whitney is our new chair. So congratulations to Whitney, which is why she's doing the presentation now, or the roll call, I should say. But yeah, congrats, Whitney, and thank you for being chair. I'm Irma Gomez. I am the CTA ADA manager here. I am a person who uses a wheelchair. And I'll kick it over to Michael.
Good afternoon, and it's good to actually see all of you on the Zoom screen this fine day. I'm Mike Connolly. I'm the Chief Planning Officer for CTA, I'm 71 years old and balding and wearing a white shirt with a blue check to it. So I'll kick it over to Elsa.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Elsa Gutierrez. I'm the Vice President of Scheduling and Service Planning, and I am wearing kind of a blue jacket, glasses, and shoulder length hair. Brown, and I'm Latina, and excited to move forward with this meeting.
Thank you so much, everyone. And we can actually start, let's see, roll and see if we have a quorum. It looks like we have more than the 7 people present, and Howard is absent. So, and I do apologize since this is my first time. I just want to make sure I do cover everything. And so we can move to announcements. I want to open the floor up to any members who have any significant events or announcements on the horizons that they would like to share with everybody. Anybody? Before we move on to the next one, I want to throw up that I have a couple of announcements I'd love to throw out. First is Second Story is pairing up with SPORC for a series of workshops for caregivers and people with disabilities. All the information is on SPORC Abilities website. The workshops are going to be held this Friday and Saturday. Also this Friday, Habitat for Humanity is having a Women Build event, and they're currently all the groups are accepting donations. Where I work at LCM Architects, they're accepting donations. And then lastly, I want to mention that 3 Arts, which is a wonderful organization here for artists of color and artists with disabilities and female artists. They're actually having their 2002 3 Arts Awards on November 7th. Registration is free. So I want to throw that out there, and I'm just going to leave it open for a couple more seconds in case anyone else has anything else they want to share with the rest of the group. Okay, then we'll just move right on ahead to the approval of July 11th, 2022 meeting minutes. All the meeting minutes were sent to members prior to the meeting for review. And so I just want to open it up now to any members if they have any changes to the minutes. Okay, I take that as a no, and then I'm gonna open it back up to ask for a motion to approve the July 11th meeting minutes.
I move to approve the meeting minutes.
Robertson seconds.
And I'm sorry, the first person was that Michael?
Michael Kaiser, yes, that Michael.
Thank you so much, and then Nicholas seconds. Thank you so much. And then I'm going to open it up for everybody in favor. Oppose or abstain of the minutes. So everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Wonderful. That sounds like consensus. Thank you so much. We can now start to move over to public comments. Irma, do we have any public comments that were submitted?
Yes, I did get one public comment from Garland Armstrong. He asked if the North Clybourne on the Red Line will be accessible, and will the CTA be collaborating with the Apple Store to make the station accessible? Just kind of like to answer his question really briefly. The North Clybourne is on phase 2 in ASAP, so it is one of our stations that will become accessible. In terms of collaboration with the Apple Store, I assume that there might be some collaboration if we need some space or something that goes along, but that will be TBD when we actually get to work on North and Clybourne.
Thank you so much, Irma, for answering that, and thank you so much for the submitting the question, Armstrong. Thank you. Okay, and since that it looks like that was our only public comment, we can actually start moving on over to our public speakers and presentations. So the first person on our itinerary is, or the first action or the first line item on the itinerary is the CTA action plan, meeting the moment. And that's going to be presented by Malik Vaishnav, the Vice President of Innovation.
Hello, everyone. It's really nice to be with you today. I hope you can hear me, but let me know if there are any issues from the technology side. My name is Malik Vaishnav. I'm the Vice President of Innovation at CTA, and I'm here today to present on the action plan that CTA released just about 2 months ago. So I'm going to be sharing a few slides with you in a moment. And let me know if there are any issues with them. Are you able to see?
Are you able to see those slides?
Yes.
Great. I'm unable to change them, but I will try and see what happens if I. Oh, that did not change for you, I don't think. Sorry about that. Oh, there you go. It just takes a really long time. Great. So I'm here to talk to you today about meeting the moment, transforming CTA's post-pandemic future CTA action plan that was released about a couple of months ago. So the title slide that moved pretty quickly just had a picture of the booklet of the action plan that has a CTA Green Line train moving through the West Loop. And now I'm on the second slide where I'm going to discuss why we chose to release this action plan at this time. So during the pandemic, CTA had a set of pretty clear priorities to provide necessary transit service for our communities to function and protect our frontline employees as well as our riders so we can keep Chicago moving. We were also working pretty hard to make sure there's financial stability while the fare revenues had declined, less than half of what would be pre-pandemic and even more during the worst of 2020. And as the pandemic rolled on, we started seeing new ridership patterns emerge where we started seeing more people riding on bus, or the retention of ridership compared to pre-pandemic was higher in the neighborhoods and on bus. And we were seeing people riding at all hours instead of having sort of two peaks. And now as we are in recovery, we have seen some of the peak ridership start to come back stronger. Even so, it has been a relatively slower recovery for the rail commuter ridership. But this summer, we started seeing more than 800,000 daily rides, or half of our ridership, pre-pandemic ridership had returned. And in September, since the action plan was released, we reached new post-pandemic highs of ridership, crossing 900,000 rides on a weekday. And we were also hearing during this time from our customers. We did a big return to transit survey in fall of 2021, about a year ago, right before Omicron sort of put another dent for a few months in our return. But people were showing pretty high satisfaction with our fare policy. We had lowered pass prices, the ease of fare payment. We had talked a lot about all the extra cleaning we were doing, but people brought up a lot of concerns with security, some social service challenges of people experiencing homelessness on our systems, or just sort of other behavior that was increasing on the system. And more recently, we started seeing increasing concerns with the service quality on the street and information about reliability issues and some of the technology issues with our trackers. So I'll try to change quickly to the next screen. So hopefully that'll change for you in a minute. But that was sort of our impetus, that we wanted to be out there talking about our action plan of all the things that were already happening that we weren't sort of packaging under this umbrella. So this slide basically talks about that this summer we began working on the action plan that would talk about the immediate steps the agency is taking that will address some of our key rider concerns. And as more people begin to return to this new normal and to transit, what are some of the immediate investments we are making in the next 3 to 6 to 12 months? And to do that, we ended up focusing on 5 key pillars. The first pillar is deliver reliable and consistent service. So this page lists all 5 of them, but I'm going to talk about each of them pretty quickly as they come up, and each has sort of its own slide. So on delivering reliable and consistent service, I'll wait a second for the slide to change here. We are experiencing bus and rail operator workforce issues that we have heard of in many other industries, especially in transportation and logistics, that we have seen higher rates of attrition. The picture on the right on the slide kind of shows some of the work that our teams are doing to get more people onboarded, talking about our pay rates, what's included, such as CDL training in the package, and all the outreach that's going into bringing more operators on the system so we can put out the level of service that is in our schedules. But at the same time, since that takes a pretty long time to accomplish, because not only are we trying to hire people as more folks are leaving, we also have to make sure they go through rigorous training so that they can, go into revenue service and drive buses and trains on our system. So that takes a little bit of time to accomplish. So during this time in the short term, we also launched service optimization, which began aligning our schedules and over time improving them so they match the level of workforce that is available to provide bus and rail service. So these will be piecemeal improvements that already began in August on the rail system, followed by a bus pick, and now upcoming another rail pick in October. And we expect to keep making these adjustments into spring 2023. And this will have a 2-pronged effect. One is people will have more reliable commutes, that even if there might be a longer wait time, riders should see more consistent availability of service on the system. And second, it will help clear some of the ghost buses and trains we have seen on the trackers, because the schedules will more closely match the level of service we are able to put out. During this time, we continue to make other improvements to the system, to bus and rail. Part of that is the tactile bus signage that I think will be discussed later in this meeting. So I'm not going to discuss a lot of that here, but we continue to make regular investments in our track, signal, and station infrastructure at the same time as dealing with some of the impacts of the pandemic. The next pillar is enhanced safety and security of riders. So the image on this slide shows one of our tall ADA doors at one of our stations that is serving 2 functions. It makes with folks with wheelchairs, their ability to use our fare gates much better than some of our older gates. But at the same time, the placement of the buttons allows us to make sure that people are not fare evading when this infrastructure is installed. That is one of the strategies we are using to limit the number of people who are on the system who may not have paid a fare. But beyond that, we have obviously heard from a lot of riders about their concerns of safety, especially it's either while waiting for our service or while being on the train. So while they're riding bus, we have pretty high level of satisfaction and low amount of crime. Obviously, CTA is not immune to what is going on in the rest of the city. And so we are working more closely with CPD to put more officers on the system. But at the same time, we have 3 contracts now with different security guard firms to do deployments specifically, especially overnight on red and blue lines, so that people see that visibility of security on the system and aren't afraid to ride our trains and can report issues to someone that they might encounter faster than having to find other ways of contacting the agency. And also we are working on addressing issues with people experiencing homelessness, mental illness, and drug abuse. We have a state and city task force that we are part of where we want to prioritize outreach on the system, but we are also trying to enhance social service outreach directly through any contracts or other relationships that we can provide directly with Night Ministry or other organizations. Moving on to the third pillar, apologies, that moved pretty quickly. I think we're on the right slide still. Sorry, I can't kind of see which slide we are on, so please correct me if you see the wrong slide. We are also at the same time working to improve customer experience at facilities. So the cleaning of fleet and stations continues. We have the Refresh and Renew program where a lot of our stations are getting a facelift, both from, you see before and after pictures here of what a station looks like before the crews get in there and make significant improvements to the floors or other parts of the station that need sort of immediate improvements all the way from painting to a little bit more hardcore infrastructure improvements. We are also introducing a lot of fleet improvements with the single largest e-bus rollout. We have about 20 e-buses in service this fall on the Chicago route, which is just great to get more of these buses out there. And we continue to test and roll out 7,000 series rail cars. Moving on to the next pillar, upgrade digital tools to improve rider experience and communication. This has been a major issue for many of our riders because your experience with CTA as a rider probably begins at home or wherever you are digitally. So when we have had a lot of bus and rail tracker complaints, we are trying to quickly address them by having already put out a new mobile responsive website for bus tracker, significant upgrades from previous versions to redefining rail tracker on the back end so that some of the scheduled service that we know might not operate has been taken out. So you're sort of not seeing that a bus is coming or a train is coming in 7 minutes, but it's not a real-time information. So we are trying to limit the instances of ghost buses and trains on the system. We are also working to pilot bus shelter digital screens, enhance tracking feature within the Ventra app. We have announced that we want to bring on a chat with CTA feature, a chatbot feature at some point. And we are working on doing more customer surveys to seek customer feedback on many of the tools that we are trying to improve. And finally, the last pillar is invest in our employees. Obviously, this is sort of built in throughout every pillar, but we still thought it was important to bring it up and talk about employees as its own pillar. We really need to continue investing in our hardworking, dedicated employees, especially on the front line. There's a picture of a rail employee on the left and a bus employee on the right here. And we are working and exploring with our union leadership on employee hiring and retention incentives, and launching a bigger refresh and renew program to improve employee facilities. There are a few other projects that are going on to provide more information to our frontline employees, such as the station agents with video screens and sturdier driver barriers on all buses. This is sort of an important aspect of continuing to invest in the workforce as we try to retain and bring on a lot of new employees in the near future. So that's sort of 5 pillars that package up the action plan. And I'm happy to take any questions. There are just a couple more slides where I wanted to mention that we did about 18 what we call Ask CTA events after the action plan was released. Here's a picture of the setup that showed, there was an Ask CTA banner with a table and name tags of our senior team directors and above out there, directly going to some of our stations and interacting with our customers. There were banners, sort of talking about the action plan, but also that we are hiring, and we are here to talk to you directly about your feedback. So that has been a really successful program, directly engaging our riders at many of our busy stations. And then on the next slide, we have a couple more slides that I'll run through really quick. That since the action plan, we've been really busy making sure that we are delivering on the promises that are within the action plan. So on the left is a picture of one of the Tactile bus stop signs, and on the right is the X4 Cottage Grove Express route that went into service this fall. And there are a couple more slides that we can jump through pretty quickly that kind of talk about other announcements, such as the improvement to the bus tracker, the contract for new K9 teams that were deployed across the rail stations. And I think there should be the last slide that talks about the ridership record in September, where we crossed 900,000 weekly rides in a day. So that's sort of a really quick overview of the action plan. Thank you so much for having me here, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you so much, Malik, for presenting. The information was incredibly informative. I have a few questions. Before I jump into my questions, I want to open it up to other members to see if anyone has any questions they would like to ask at this moment.
This is Mary. I have 2 quick questions. Exactly what do the K9 teams do? I mean, if I go over there, am I going to encounter one, and can I pet them, or, what goes on?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you, Mary. So generally, we have had K9 teams in the past at CTA. It was probably before 2018. So they've been brought back. They're specifically deployed in a strategic way based on where we are seeing issues. So the K9s are generally, they have a mouth guard on them. Generally, you're not supposed to pet them, but they're always with 2 security guards with them. So they're obviously never anywhere by themselves or pose any risk to our riders. But there are 2 security guards, and as a team of 2 security guards plus 1 K9, they're patrolling some of our stations where we have seen higher instances of crime. And they are out there more during certain hours on stations and trains, such as overnight or off-peak. And their schedule sort of gets moved around based on where the need is the highest.
So the idea is just a kind of a disincentive, or?
Yes, disincentive is a big idea. Their presence is also helpful in the rail cars, within the rail cars, where you might be going, few minutes without any stations between them. And if there's any, unlawful activity going on, their presence can help sort of stop that. Beyond that, they are also able to quickly get in touch with our control or with CPD to provide additional resources if something beyond their ability to stop begins to happen on the system.
My other question is, while you're working on those bus and train trackers, is there any way you could provide an option to list the stops in the order of the route? So I know from a visual perspective, having them listed in alphabetical order might be helpful, but for those of us who can't read maps, if we knew where the stops are in relationship to each other because of the order in which they stop, that would really be helpful. I have a friend came in just without any notice from Colorado, and I was trying to figure out how to explain to them, where their bus stop would be in relationship to their hotel. So if I had known, what order the stops was going to come up on the 146 and the bus number 3, that would have really been helpful.
Thank you. That's a great suggestion. I will take it back to our bus tracker team, and we'll bring you an update at the next meeting on any issues of why we don't do that or how quickly we could do something like that. But that's a great point that you bring up.
Thank you.
And
Just to reinforce.
And this is Doreen from MLPD, and I second what Mary just, her suggestion. One alternate option could also be because I understand, some people want it one way, some people want it another. An alternate option could also be a filter at the top, and you can like right now, a lot of the trackers, you can choose you select your bus or your train, and then you select going north, going south, going east, going west. Usually it's north or south, and then it's east or west. Well, they could have another filter where it could be, stops alphabetically or stops in order of occurrence. And then whichever one you select, then they would come up in that order. So both would be an option. You would just have to select which one, and maybe, one of them would obviously be the default, but a lot of the tracker settings, they could even, you could even do it in your settings that way too. So there's room to play with that.
And it's not just people with visual impairments who would benefit from that. I would too, and I don't have a visual impairment.
Thank you.
Right. I mean, what I'll find myself doing is I will find myself, it depends on which app you're using with the trackers and stuff too, but I know the app I use, if you tap on a stop itself, and then you, like if it says the bus is due in 5 minutes, and then you tap on it again, it'll tell you like the remaining stops in the order. And sometimes I'll do that just to get the street order, Yep. Like let's say I'm tracking the 157, and even though like I know the order of the streets over here, but if let's say I didn't know the order, well then I would tap on Polk, and then I would tap on it again, so it opens it again, and then it'll say Polk and Wood, 5 minutes, Polk and Walcott, 6 minutes, Polk and David, 7 minutes. And so that's my little cheat, my little workaround, but you still have to like get, still have to go that extra mile to get it to do that. And so, yeah, I don't know why it doesn't do it, why it doesn't allow the order. That would be very helpful.
Thank you, Mary, Doreen, and Michael. I actually have a question that piggybacks off of one of Mary's questions about the K9 unit. And I was just wondering, in your experience, have you gotten any concerns between guide dog users interacting with K9 units in a unsafe, unhelpful way?
That's a great question. We will ask safety and security if either this contract just rolled out, so it's only been a few weeks, and at least on my side, I haven't heard anything. But even if there were issues in the old contract years ago and how we rectified if there were any, so we'll get you that information. But that's a really good question.
my kid, this is Michael Kaiser. My kids have a service dog, a bona fide, fully trained service dog, and they're trained not to interact with other animals. So if the animal, service animal is interacting, then it's not a service animal or it has not been properly trained.
Thank you so much for that, Michael. And before I jump into, I have a few quick questions. Before I jump to my questions for you, Malik, I want to make sure that I address everybody else. Does anyone else have a question that they'll like to bring up at this moment?
This is Laura. I have a couple questions, but my internet's unstable, so let me know if it's not clear. I guess specifically related to the canine units, I was wondering if there's any concerns about them, like whether or not it also, I guess the point is to intimidate, but whether it will make riders feel uncomfortable or feel intimidated or feel unwelcome. I mean, I think that gets to some issues with the increased patrols, as well as if that was a consideration.
Laura, that's a really good question. I think currently these Ask CT events was one of our ways beyond sort of other channels of communication to gauge what sort of an average rider who might not, take the extra mile to write in complaints or anything like that would feel about some of this or sort of the things we hear through other advocacy groups. And generally, even we were on the west side and in the Austin neighborhood, and several people came up to us and said, where are your canine units? Where are your security guards? We are riding here every day. We haven't seen them. So for the most part, the concern we got was like more visibility, that they almost want to see more of them if we are making those investments. But I do agree with you that if we get concerns about sort of, is this too intimidating? Either we need to address that with any form of training that they're already required, or how else we sort of rectify that. But so far, at least on my end, we haven't specifically heard about sort of unfriendly or intimidating interaction that might make someone avoid the transit system.
Hey, Malik, this is John Pellegrini from security. Everything you said has been spot on. And regarding complaints with the canine, very little to none. So, let's see here, I'll try my thing here. Very little to none, and actually we've been getting more positive feedback regarding having the dogs on the platform, and it just seems when the dogs are there, the crowd that usually loiters, being loud, interfering with people, they seem to disperse with the quickness, and they go elsewhere. So, and like you said, Malik, there's 2 guards to a dog. It's high visibility, and the dogs have a job to do. And just like with the service dogs, they're trained in a certain way, and they might do a lot of barking, but with the muzzle on, and they're not very intimidating most of the time. So, so far the feedback's been very, very good.
This is Mary. I have a quick follow-up question about that. Where do the dogs ride? Like, are they lying in the aisle? Are they under a seat? Because now I'm thinking I jump on the train, especially if the doors are about to close. Am I going to have to worry about stepping on the dog or falling over the dog?
The dogs usually don't. The canine team do not ride the trains. They're mostly for a platform in the stations.
Oh, okay.
The other guard companies ride, the ones without the dogs, they ride the train.
I see. But again, are they in the middle of the station, along the wall? Where should I be careful not to run into them and hurt,
Well, you won't have to, you won't have to worry about that. The guards usually stay visible, but out of people's way. Usually they're against the wall of some sort.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. No problem.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Mary. Just to be sensitive of the time, I'm going to quickly ask my questions, and then if you can't answer them within the next few minutes, that's fine. We can just come back to a later time. But the first question that I had was in terms of employees or the operators leaving. I was wondering if it was more having to deal with retention or retirement. Are there just too many people just kind of leaving because of this is their time to leave, and it's harder to kind of fill in those spots of seasoned operators? And then I'll just jump into the second question. The second question is if you could please explain a little bit more about the pilot that you had for the digital screens for the bus shelters. I'll be really interested to know about that, as well as there are some inherent accessibility issues that come with chatbots, and that was one of the line items that you had mentioned. And I was wondering if there would still be an option for somebody to talk to a live representative if they could not get their information from the chatbot or from the website itself. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Whitney. These are great. If I forget any, just remind me. But so on the chatbot, we are still in really early stages of trying to answer these questions within an internal group to have sort of a prototype that kind of, we want something that's better than just a forms website scan, but it does not need to have the level of logic that, we'll only find out how many instances aren't getting resolved after it's piloted to the public. And that is still, I think, several months away. So at that point, we are internally discussing what are the kinds of use cases that the chatbot will be targeted towards. And a great point on accessibility, we will bring that here or work with Irma and the team to figure out how we can address some of the issues that will bring. There's no current interest in connecting to a live person. It's that we have a service center that anyone can call. None of those things are changing. It's just that if people mostly want to report certain things really quickly and don't want to go through the trouble of finding the online form or calling someone, the chatbot can really sort of address some of that really quickly for folks who are sort of always on the phone. We'll get you more information on the bus shelter digital screens offline. And to your first question about attrition, it's been sort of a combination of both. There are folks retiring who, kind of sort of can plan that out as part of the workforce modeling purposes. But then we had another layer of sort of, quote unquote, great resignation. That was the folks weren't ready to retire, but they're just looking, for different lifestyle changes or other parts in their lives post, as we were reopening post the post vaccines, I guess. The biggest issue it creates for us is sort of the gap between someone leaving and then that specific position getting filled, because even if you have 50 operators in the pipeline coming, they have to go through X months of training, then they go through the picking of the schedule. So there are several steps that sort of create pockets where we are currently experiencing sort of that gap where the numbers aren't adding up based on the number of operators needed versus the number of operators available for live service tomorrow. And the last thing I would add is add sort of call-offs for sickness or other issues on top of that. So while many of us might feel that the high levels of COVID, it's been several months of that not happening, we were having so many call-offs for COVID, early summer, late summer. So it hasn't been that long in that larger world of not being able to predict the number of people who might call in sick. That adds to that daily invariability and sort of issues with service on top of the rest of what is a little bit more longer term than tomorrow's schedule.
Thank you so much, Marley, for answering my questions and the rest of the members' questions. The clarification is incredibly helpful. And if anyone has any questions later, please email and we can try to answer those. But thank you so much, Malik.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And so our next presenter or the topic is the bus tracker overview, and that's going to be presented by Will Anderson, the manager of external electronic communications.
Hi, everybody. One of the pillars that Malik just talked about was upgrading digital tools, and one of the projects under those pillars was to upgrade the CTA Bus Tracker website. That's the website you get when you go to ctabustracker.com. And I'm just going to talk you through some of that work, and I'm going to share my screen here and describe what I'm doing as I do it. So right now I've got my web browser open, and I've got it open to the page ctabustracker.com/home. This is the home page of the new CTA Bus Tracker. So the upgrade that we did recently brought a number of advantages to what used to be a fairly old website. This new website has a completely new design, and the design adapts to any size of screen. So right now I'm on a laptop screen, and you can see that we've got this black background, dark background. We've got pops of CTA blue. We have the main features of the website listed along the left-hand side: favorites, arrival times, map, subscribe, track by text. I'll talk you through each of those in turn. But one of the main features is that if you were looking at this website on a tablet screen, like an iPad, or on a phone screen, the layout would rearrange to give you all the same information, but in something that fits that screen specifically, so that you're not losing out on anything or having difficulty pinching and zooming and panning back and forth. Another big advantage with the new upgrade is that it's much easier to find stops near you. So if you are waiting at a bus stop and you've got your phone with you, you can now use GPS to find stops near you rather than searching by name or by number. You can save favorites. So if you have a few favorite trips, you always stay at the same favorite stop. So you can add a favorite stop without having to create an account. This is a new feature. It used to be that you had to sign up for Bus Tracker, create a username, create a password, confirm your email address. None of that is necessary anymore, just to save your favorite stops on the website. We have much better mapping features now than we did previously, and I'll show those to you more in a moment. And then all of this, in addition to these immediate improvements, the update also sets the stage for future improvements down the road. So we've modernized our code base, which sets the stage for better vehicle tracking and more accurate arrival predictions in the future. As an aside, I will note that there is also a text-only link that you can see in the bottom left column here. This brings you to a version of the website without any styling information. So it's just text. It's all the same information, but both interfaces, the text-only interface and the default interface, are both keyboard accessible. So let me talk down the main features of the new bus tracker, and then I'll be happy to take any questions. The first one's probably the most straightforward. This is where you would go to add a favorite stop. So if I always take the 56 coming from work, I can select using these drop-down menus on the right side of the screen which route I'm interested in, which direction I travel in, and then which stop I wait at. If I add a favorite, that favorite is added to the left side of the screen, and I can see that with live tracking that there's a bus coming in 10 minutes, and I can come back to this website and come back here, and it remembers my favorites without having to actually sign in and create an account. If I want to check an arrival time for a stop that I have not listed as a favorite, I can go to the arrival times option. And this is where you'll see the new find stops near me option. It's most accurate on a phone, which has an inbuilt GPS, but I'll try it from my laptop here and see what it gives me. Here we go. So from here, I can find stops near me and follow a particular bus, favorite a particular route, look up the schedule. I also have access on the left side of my screen here under a drop down to recent stops. I can find stop information and arrival information that way. Or I can do it by stop number, which is printed at the bus stop. Or I can do, once again, the route that I'm interested in with a drop down, the direction that I'm interested in with a drop down, and then selecting the stop that I'm interested in to get a list of all of the arrivals at that stop. Back to the home page once more. This is a new map view. And with the map, you can look up very similarly which routes you're interested in seeing. In this case, it allows you to see the entire route at once with all of the buses on that route. I'm going to clear that out now and go under a second tab here. The first tab was routes. The second tab, stops, and I've got all the same stop information or stop finder options that I had before. I can use the GPS to find stops near me. I can enter a stop number if I'm at the stop and I can see the number, or I can select the route, select the direction, and then select the stop that I'm interested in. Back to the home page, and the fourth option on the left here is subscribe. So if you don't want to go to bustracker.com, ctabustracker.com every time, if you travel at the same time of day every day, and you want to be proactively informed about what the arrival predictions are, you can create an account, and you can have arrival predictions for a particular route at a particular stop, either emailed to you or texted to you, or both, on whatever days and whatever times of day you choose. And then finally, this last option, the fifth option on the left-hand side here is track by text. This gives you instructions about how you can, if you prefer to simply text rather than use the website, you can text CTA bus space and then the bus stop number. And that's yet another way that you can get arrival predictions at a certain stop. So those are the main features of the new ctabustracker.com. We're excited to roll this out, and we're excited about what it means for the future as well, as we continue to iterate and make improvements. And I'm happy to answer any questions about it.
Thank you so much, Will, for that presentation and for walking us through the new updated CTA bus tracker. Before I jump into my questions, does anybody have a question for Will that they would like to ask at the moment?
Yeah, I have a question, Doreen from MOPD. Any plans on having this available, through the CTA in an app, whether it be the Ventra app or a standalone app?
So this same information behind the scenes actually provides an application programming interface, it's called, which is a bit of jargon that means that it provides a data feed for other applications to use. And in fact, when you go to the Ventra app and you see a bus arrival prediction with the little green radio waves next to it, that means that it is a live prediction. It's based on tracking the real-time location of a bus, and that information is coming from the back end of this website.
Okay, so basically any of the bus and train apps, the data is fed from this system.
This system provides the real-time predictions for all the buses. Some apps, including the Ventra app, mix in the schedule information as well, because a bus is only giving predictions once it's in motion. So like if you are in the Ventra app and you're planning a trip for, a couple hours in the future, it will draw from the schedule information for that from a different source. But if you're looking at live bus information, it's coming from this website.
Got it. And then also the other question is, are you, anytime you roll out changes to this, or, you know, not only changes to the content and the coding, but also when there's periodic changes, you know, done in the background, whether it be security updates or to other features in the website, do you have a team or somebody designated to test it for screen reader access on an ongoing basis? I mean, I know like it was rolled out to us and we did some preliminary testing, but I'm wondering what is the situation in terms of ongoing testing as changes occur either from CTA or in the background and browser, etc.
Yeah. Well, this project was timed such that it actually, so we first of all, we work with a vendor, Clever Devices, on this website. So this is a product that they offer that we have customized for us. Part of that customization was fixing some accessibility issues that we found, but luckily we timed this well in that regard because they had just gone through an accessibility audit and fixed a bunch of stuff before we started this project. So we do test on an ongoing basis, and I'm always happy to raise issues with that team as we continue to iterate on the project. So you can find me through the feedback form, transitchicago.com/feedback, or you can email webmaster@transitchicago.com if you have any questions or concerns or issues to raise. But short version is yes, we do test on an ongoing basis. Okay,
one thing to keep in mind is to make sure on an ongoing basis that the companies that you use, that they're using the web content access guidelines. As long as they're web content access compliant, then that's actually it's not a 100% guarantee, but it's a good indicator. And what it used to be, like over 10 years ago, it used to be the web access guidelines, but they have since changed that to the web content access guidelines, because the web access guidelines simply meant you could access the site, right? But the content individually was or was not compatible. So that's one thing you want to make sure that they are web content access guideline compliant.
Yeah.
For screen reader access.
That's great. I appreciate that. Thank you.
It's also referred to as the WCAG guidelines.
Thank you, Doreen. And I actually have a question in line with that for Will. When you went to the page that showed the select your stops, and it was a Google map, and that had some drop-down features that could list the stops. One of the first questions that came to mind was how accessible was that Google map for like screen readers, and just overall for any images similar to the Google map that you might have, how does that get just interpreted for those who might not be able to view it?
Yeah, so our most used page is actually the arrival times page, but where you actually don't have to use the map at all if you don't want to. But of course, if we've got the map, it should be accessible, right? So we have been working on this, and the part of the upgrade is using a new and more accessible version of the Google Maps embed than the previous website used. It's still not perfect. There are still some things that we're talking with our vendor about. So for example, it is possible to tab to each bus icon and get details about each individual bus, but the order of the icons is not very intuitive for keyboard users. And so that's something that we are figuring out how to fix. It's a tricky problem. So we're sort of meeting the WCAG guidelines, but there are some usability issues still to tackle.
Thank you so much for answering that, and I want to relate to that within this committee and then with our subcommittee, we do have screen reader users and people who are very well adept with who will be more than happy to help test out that as it gets developed. So please tap us on the shoulder if when you get to that stage. Before I move on, I want to make sure, does any other member have a question that they would like to ask Will? Okay. Thank you so much, Will, for presenting all of this and for answering all of our questions. This was incredibly helpful. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's see, up next, we have the Tactile bus stop signage update, and that's going to be presented by Jason Meter, the Senior Manager of Traffic Planning.
Thanks. Good afternoon, everybody. Caucasian male, late 30s, light brown hair, beard, and a floral shirt. Thanks for having me. I'll share my screen real quick. My update will be brief. I'll talk to you about the tactile bus stop signs as well as some accessibility improvements at bus stops themselves. I presented on these items at the previous meeting, so I just wanted to kind of give you guys a status update on where those stand. All right, just to kind of recap what this initiative entails. This was a concept identified during All Stations Accessible Plan by the ADA Advisory Committee. That predates my involvement on the project, but it was actually this group here that helped bring this to fruition. We applied for a grant to do a pilot rollout, and for that initial rollout that is currently underway, this will be on 12 routes or 9 corridors. So the reason for the difference is the Ashland, Cottage Grove, and Western all have express routes overlaid. So same corridor, but if you count the express routes separately, it adds up to 12. The specific corridors were selected on ridership, need, and community feedback. There's 2 photos on the slide. One of them is a sign that has been installed. It is, I believe, 4 by 7 inches wide, a blue sign. It has bus stop in white raised lettering, and then it didn't come out well in the photograph, but it says bus stop in Braille below that as well. They're mounted between 48 and 60 inches high. Perpendicular to the road, kind of facing where the bus is coming from, and the height of the mounting is per ADA guidelines. To give an update of where things stand, installations are complete on Route 4/X4, that's Cottage Grove, on Route 20 Madison, and on Route 157 Streeterville. So if you ride any of those routes, you may encounter these out in the wild. Currently underway is installations on Ashland along Route 9 and X9. We expect the rest of the signs in the pilot to be rolled out and completed over the next few months. Things have been going very quickly here at the initial. Now that we're getting into winter weather, it may slow down a bit, which is why we're kind of being vague with the timeline. The same crew that installs the signs also gets pulled for snow removal and things like that. But by I'd say early 2023, it should be complete on all 9 corridors. The remaining corridors are 12 Roosevelt, 63rd Street, 66 Chicago, and 79 79th Street. And that adds up to over 1,400 stops. Also on the slide is a map showing, a dot for every bus stop where one of the tactile signs is slated to be installed as part of this pilot program. Once the rollout is complete, we intend to gather feedback, and then if the initiative is deemed successful, there's always the opportunity to apply for additional grant funding and eventually, roll it out to the whole system. But right now we're just focusing on this pilot program and getting that installed. Now I'll jump to the next agenda item. I guess we can save questions on both till we're done talking. All right, so the next initiative I want to talk about is a bus stop accessibility improvements at over 100 stops around the city. This is actually being led by CDOT. They were unable to join the meeting today, but I've been working in close coordination with them to get these implemented in order to improve accessibility at stops all around the system. The main goal here is to take stops that either just have grass, broken sidewalk, or otherwise no way to easily deploy a wheelchair ramp or have somebody with limited mobility board and alight the bus. A lot of them, the example on the screen that I've brought up is just a location that we put a simple sidewalk pad that meets ADA requirements for ramp deployment. We filled in some previously grass area with a patch of sidewalk in order to make boarding and alighting more accessible. Status update on this is that 21 locations have been completed. 53 are currently under some phase of construction, and the remaining 26 to round out the 100 are in survey and design. Just to kind of recap what I went over last time as far as how to select the locations for these, the city looked at hardship index based on economic mobility and need factors, and decided to focus primarily on certain neighborhoods to start rolling this out. The neighborhoods are Belmont Cragen, Austin, Chatham, Douglas, East Garfield Park, Roseland, and Edgewater. Then within those neighborhoods, we prioritized the stops that were not currently accessible to make them, looking at the ones with the highest ridership and also most needs, if they're in close proximity to hospitals, large retirement homes, things like that, was taken into account as well. We also have data for deployment of the wheelchair ramp on buses at particular locations, so that helped inform the decisions. Outside those neighborhoods, we did a few spot improvements also, again, where there's very high wheelchair ramp deployments near hospitals and large concentrations of elderly riders. So, I think the goal is to eventually make every stop in our system completely accessible. Right now, most of them are, and this is currently being funded by a bond that the city has put out. I believe that it's active for several more years. So, this is just 100 in the first rollout with the intent to keep continuing this initiative. And with that, I'll take any questions or comments that anybody has.
Thank you so much, Jason. Before I go into my questions, does anyone have any questions for Jason about either the Tactile bus stop signage update or the ADA sidewalk project? Okay, so I do have one question for you, and it's pertaining to the Tactile sign. You had mentioned that you mentioned where exactly it's going to be located, but I guess my overall kind of concern that came to mind is that, each bus stop, especially when there's a shelter, sometimes the clear floor space to the pole that you're talking about putting the sign on sometimes is obstructed or is very close to the shelter, and so it's kind of difficult to get to the spot that you're mentioning. So I was just wondering, how is that being accounted for, the possible limited clear floor space to the signs?
Right. I'm sure there are some out there that are, more challenging than others to just, intuitively encounter. and for consistency, we've placed them on the same pole wherever the blue and white bus stop sign is. Be that on its own freestanding pole, which is in most cases, but then sometimes it'll be on a light pole or a shared pole with other signs. The reasoning behind that is that bus operators are instructed that the front bumper of the bus should be aligned with that blue and white sign when opening the doors and boarding and alighting. Again, it's with the real world conditions at every stop, it's not going to be perfect at every one, but for a matter of consistency, that was the decision we decided to go with. So that in most cases, when you're encounter that sign, it should be where the front doors of the bus will open up.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for the clarification of that. That was my last question. I'm going to open it back up to members to see if anyone else has any other question before we move on. Okay, thank you so much, Jason, for presenting on these two really important topics. Thank you for keeping us updated with what's happening with the signs and the sidewalk.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you. And then our next presentation is the Red Purple Modernization, the RPM update. And that's going to be presented by Jeff Wilson, Director of Community Relations of RPM.
Good afternoon, everybody. Jeff Wilson here, Director of Government Community Relations, CTA. Whitney, congratulations. Irma, thank you so much for putting all this together. It's really helpful. I appreciate it very much. I'm going to begin by just giving that brief overview that I always give with regards to the Red Purple Modernization Project. We're going to be talking about the three different phases that we're currently operating in. One is the RPB, which is the Red Purple Bypass area. And the Red Purple Bypass area is from Belmont north to just south of Addison. And within that, we have something called the North Mainline Project, which is the area that is just south of Addison and involves straightening out the curve there. As a lot of you can remember back in the day when you headed north on the red line from Belmont, the track did a little jog. So one of the main components of us working there is to straighten out that little jog right in the track. So with the Red Purple Bypass area, we go north to North Main Line, and then after that, we hopscotch over Addison, Sheridan, Wilson, and we start the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr modernization project, which is also under the umbrella of the Red Purple project. And that is the reconstruction, rebuild of four stations. That's Lawrence, Berwyn, Bryn Mawr, and Argyle. Not necessarily in that order because I messed that up. But we're also doing signal systems project, which is replacing all the signal systems, which is really important for the entire area. So I'm going to backtrack and go back to the Red Purple Bypass area north of Belmont and talk to you about what we're doing in there. And we finished the bridge. So we now have trains running seamlessly from north and south and west with the brown line. Without having to stop and wait for that annoying beep, 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 attention customers who are waiting for signals ahead. So that's been eliminated, thank goodness. And now within the bypass area, we're focused on the signal systems house, which is immediately west of the Belmont Station, which will be installed soon. But then we're going to start focusing on the North Mainline part of the track where I talked about the taking out that little jog in the red line. That is what we're starting with now. We're also doing some lead abatement up there, which is very important to the community. But most importantly, what this group is concerned about and what we're really focused on right now is working with the Alderman's office and CDOT and the contractor to make sure that sidewalks and alleys and streets are accessible. One of the problems we were having at the beginning of this project was making sure that there was accessibility for people that were going in and out and around the construction area. So we've been assigned a new infrastructure person for the 44th Ward, which is Alderman Tommy's office, who has been instrumental in helping us get that word out and help us with identifying any problem areas within the red purple bypass area that might be inaccessible. So a shout out to the 44th Ward on that. As we go back up north with the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr modernization area, we're currently operating in what's called Stage A. And during Stage A, what we did is we demolished the east side of the tracks, and we focused on rebuilding the caissons and the support structure and the actual pieces of the infrastructure that we needed to do in order to rebuild those stations and put in a new track. A lot of that had to do with utility relocation work that was completed during the Stage A process. And we are about to evolve out of the Stage A process, probably June, July of next summer. And that would be into our Stage B process, where we actually flip back to the west side of the track and do the demolition work and start focusing on rebuilding those 4 stations that I mentioned earlier: Lawrence, Argyle, Berwyn, and Bryn Mawr. That, by the way, is the right order. So that is a lot of the work we're doing. Right now, the gantry, the infrastructure, the equipment that's actually putting that track and embankment infrastructure in place is just south of Gowdy Elementary School, and we're about to get to Argyle, and that should be within the next 2 weeks approximately. So if you're driving up north or want a tour of the area, please reach out. You'll see a giant piece of equipment that actually is delivering what we call the box girders, which is the support structure for the track that's going to be put in place that'll support the area from basically Lawrence north to Bryn Mawr. One of the other pieces I wanted to mention was we are about to engage with the public with public artwork that's going to be put in those stations. So that process, look for that process to begin shortly. We will be issuing RFPs to different artists to focus on all 4 of those stations in the near future. Let's see, I know I'm missing something. Oh, the project completion date, which is something everybody wants to know about, is probably going to be Q4 of 2025. And what else? That is kind of the 35,000 view of the project. I can open up for questions if anybody has any questions or concerns, or they want to set up a tour with me, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. Before I jump into my question, does anybody have anything that they'll like to ask at the moment?
Anybody? I got answers. You've got questions.
Well, I'll certainly like to say that the wayfinding subcommittee is where we're trying to work into doing more site visits. So we are trying to put one together for October. We'll definitely reach out to you as that develops. Thank you.
That sounds great, Whitney. I really appreciate it. Everybody here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey, for being with us. Thank you. If we don't have any more questions, we can go over to the next presentation. I'm just gonna. Okay, and so our next presentation looks like it is the last on our docket is the All Stations Accessible Program, ASAP update, which is going to be presented by Tanisha Marshall, Vice President of Capital Construction.
Thank you. Thank you, Whitney. Good afternoon to the members of the ADA Advisory Committee, active participants, and listeners. I am Tanisha Marshall, the Vice President of Capital Construction here at CTA. Natalie, I think there is a presentation that was submitted. Oh, there we go. Thank you. So I will be providing you an overview of the All Stations Accessibility Program, an update on the Phase 1 locations, and next steps as we move into Phase 2 planning. Next slide, please. Currently, 103 of CTA's 145 stations are vertically accessible, which is one of the highest rates of accessibility of any legacy transit agency in the country. CTA trains and buses are wheelchair accessible, and 71% of CTA rail stations are accessible via elevator or ramp. As an overview, the 42 inaccessible stations were broken out into 4 ASAP phases. All 8 stations in ASAP Phase 1 are fully funded and progressing forward. Of the 8, 4 are being advanced through the RPM that Mr. Wilson just discussed. In addition to the 4 RPM, CDOT is leading the reconstruction of the State and Lake Station downtown. I believe that was discussed at the last quarterly presentation. And the remaining 3 stations in ASAP Phase 1 are the Austin Green Line, Montrose Blue Line, and California Blue Line. Phases 2 through 4 each include 5 to 6 ASAP stations, including the Forest Park branch, and the future phases of the RPM are constructed. I'm pleased to report that design for the Racine station along the Forest Park branch from Phase 2 is funded and will be under construction next year. Having a phased implementation strategy is important to charting out a path for planning, designing, and constructing the proposed accessibility improvements at each station. Phasing is based on funding, complexity, geography, and incorporation of equity in investments. Next slide, please. As previously stated, we're happy to report that due to funding from the Rebuild Illinois Capital Program, CTA is able to accelerate one of the Forest Park branch stations, Racine, which will now be completed in ASAP Phase 1. This project was recently advertised and construction is scheduled to begin in late spring 2023, going through late 2025. One of the major components to the Phase 1 work will be the upgrade to the Racine station, which has entrances at Racine and Loomis. At the Racine entrance, the ramp will be replaced with a full-size elevator. At the Loomis entrance, the ramp will be improved with ADA compliance landings. Additional accessibility upgrades will be incorporated for the entrance doors and wayfinding. The Austin Green Line station is a $25 million project that addresses accessibility from the street all the way to the station platform and onto the train. Modifications include the addition of an ADA compliant ramp between the street level and the station house. A new elevator will be added connecting the station house to the platform, which will be positioned on the paid side of the station house and centered between the 2 sets of stairs that connects to the platform level. This project is progressing through design as we complete our coordination with the historic resource agencies. Construction is projected to start in fall of 2023. I will be spotlighting this project during today's meeting. The next one is the California Blue Line station. This is a $36 million project that addresses the need for accessibility at this station. Modifications include the addition of 2 new elevators, one on both the inbound and outbound platforms, as well as other new elements in the renovated station house to improve the accessible path. At the east end, the platform will be widened to allow space for a wheelchair to safely pass and accommodate the high volume of riders at this station. Emergency egress stairs with accessible barrier gates will be added to enhance safety and circulation. This project is early in design with construction late 2023 or early 2024. The Montrose Blue Line station is a $23 million project that will improve the station's vertical accessibility, including improved sidewalks, crosswalks, and curb ramps, installation of 2 new elevators, and other station and platform upgrades. This project is currently in the process of selecting a design consultant and has a projected construction start in 2024. CDOT is leading the reconstruction of the State and Lake Station downtown. This station is one of the highest ridership stations. CDOT is currently advancing the design of the project. Once the design is finalized and the project is funded, construction is expected to take 3 years at a total estimated cost of $200 million. CDOT presented last quarter on this loop station project. Next slide, please. So this quarter spotlight project is the Austin station on the Green Line. We will fully modernize the station to provide for full accessibility. The design is at 90% completion and is entering permitting with the city. Currently, the station entry is only accessible by stairs up to the main entrance. A new weather-protected ramp with ADA push-button access doorways will be provided from the adjacent sidewalks and bus stops into the station. Inside the station house, a new fare array will be installed, leading to an elevator to platform level. Throughout the station, new wayfinding signage will be installed. This rendering depicts the new elevator tower extending above the platform. As part of the design phase coordination, the station was determined to be historic. CTA will be completing extensive documentation on the existing station house prior to removal of any materials. The work on the platform canopy structure was limited to retain as much of the original elements as feasible. During construction, the currently closed auxiliary entrance at Mason Street will be reopened as a temporary entrance to allow for the major improvements at the main entrance house. After construction, it will be converted back to an exit-only facility to support emergency and community exiting from the station. This exit will receive new finishes, lighting, and security cameras, which will also serve to improve the customer experience. Next slide, please. The station house main area will be expanded to provide for better circulation. The main area will be refurbished, the fare array aligned with a new customer service kiosk. The non-public functions will be moved outside to open up space and expanded to support the increased communications and elevator needs. The elevator will be located within easy visibility. It is a pass-through design to accommodate the narrow platform above. The existing stairs will have new contrasting color stair treads installed. The escalator will remain. The benefits of the project in safety and security include improved lighting and sight lines, and new finishes will be experienced by all passengers, bringing a new amenity for riders in Chicago's Austin neighborhood and adjacent Oak Park. The Austin station provides access to major community assets and connects residents with opportunities in downtown Chicago and downtown Oak Park. Next slide. Any questions regarding the Austin station?
This is Whitney Hill. I do have one question. I was on the schematic that you had just shown on the slide before. There was a ADA toilet room, and I was just wondering if the doorway leading to that corridor to that toilet room, if that was a push automatic door. I was just curious.
So I don't know specifically, but I can definitely look to make sure that it is a push door. I think whenever we supply that ADA accessibility for those washrooms, the push door is installed, but I'll definitely verify to make sure.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay. If there are no additional questions on Austin, yep, next slide. Thank you. Next slide. Yep. So CTA is excited to announce the start of a new $30 million project on the Brown Line at the Western Station. The station house was completely rebuilt in 1981 with one of the first stations with elevators. This station has the highest ridership on the Ravenswood branch of the Brown Line and has an attached bus transfer area. Since it currently has elevators, it is not part of the main ASAP program. The station was constructed before the 1990 enactment of the ADA regulations. The station does not meet current guidelines for elevator size, accessible pathways, and elements such as accessible bus stops. The major reconstruction will include station renewal and replacement of 2 aging elevators, which will bring the station up to modern standards for accessibility, as well as provide a state of good repair and customer enhancements to improve usability and neighborhood connections. This project will be a design build contract that will advertise this month with construction anticipated to start in 2024. Next slide. So at this time, I will pass it to Ms. Erin Fiorini, who's our Director of Infrastructure Capital Program Oversight. She will provide an update on the strategic plan.
Thank you, Tanisha. My name is Erin Fiorini. I'm the Director of Infrastructure Capital Program Oversight at CTA. Wanted to give you guys an update of the ASAP plan that CTA has. Currently, our ASAP strategic plan is currently under revision. Every 5 years, that plan needs to be revised. And so we're in that period of revising that plan. And what that means is that we go back and update all of the data that was included in that original plan from 2018. And we take the most recent ridership data. And in this case, we've used ridership data prior to the pandemic from 2019, because that's the most true ridership that we have relative to our customer usage. The numbers obviously after the pandemic don't really help very much, and they will really change things around. So the slide that's presented right here is a little bit of rephasing of the original phase plan that you see in the ASAP 2018 plan. What this does is it brings in a few stations that were in later phases of the program based on the different data changes that we saw. So the new phase 2 on the blue line will include Irving Park, Belmont, Cicero, Pulaski, and Austin. And then on the green line, it's Oak Park and Ridgeland. North and Clybourne does stay in phase 2. And then the rest of it is left for a potential for future RPM programs, with those still to be determined. The Adams and Wabash, particularly, just to kind of highlight that move to phase 3, recognizing that the current loop project State and Lake has to be completed first. We don't want to take 2 loop stations down at the same time. So after State and Lake is done, we're hoping then that we'll have funding to continue with the Adams Wabash for phase 3. And another thing I just wanted to let you guys know, on Friday, October 7th was the final day for agencies to submit the first ever ASAP grant, which is really exciting because it allows legacy transit agencies to submit for funding to support making stations accessible that aren't currently accessible. So CTA did submit that grant application, and we're hoping to hear back from the FTA by the end of this year. And that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Tanisha and Erin, for that presentation. I'd like to open questions up to members. Do you have any additional questions? Okay. If anything comes to mind for anyone, please feel free to email and to just let us know. We can still get your questions answered. Once again, thank you so much, Tanisha and Erin. Next on the itinerary are the subcommittee reports. Just a reminder, there are 3 subcommittees. The funding and advocacy, which is in need of a chair, safety and training and technology, which is also in need of chair, and then the wayfinding subcommittee, where I'm the chair. I would like to pass along to the public and to say that the subcommittee, the wayfinding subcommittee, is currently planning to do a site visit of the Western Brown Line before it's slated for remodeling. We're going to do a light kind of user visit, look at currently what is inaccessible or might be a concern that we want to make sure gets carried over to the CTA before they start developments. I will be there taking a few pictures and some light measurements. And then I do believe that the ADA manager, the ADA compliance program, Irma Gomez, will also be there in attendance. So we are trying to schedule that. Right now we're looking looking at Saturday, the 22nd, but once more information is firmed up, that will be emailed out to anyone. If you're interested, please feel free to email me. Information is on CTA's website. And then next,
I'm sorry, Whitney.
Yes.
Whitney, it's Doreen. So you're going to email everybody who attended the last subcommittee meeting for the wayfinding committee once you finalize the date and time.
Yes. So currently, all members of the wayfinding subcommittee have been emailed. We're still trying to get a straw poll for the exact time and date that works for everybody. Once that gets a bit more hammered down, everyone will be updated about that.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And then next on the itinerary is the facilitators report. And I'll kick that over to Irma Gomez, Manager of ADA Compliance Programs.
Thank you, Whitney. So this quarter, I focused on recruitment on the ADA Advisory Committee. We had 15 applicants, which were all very wonderful and shared a lot of knowledge and passion about disability-related issues in transportation. So we thank all of you for applying. We did select 4 applicants, 3 of which are present today. So Sarah, Lindy, Cindy, Lara, thank you all for your quick turnaround and participation in today's meeting. The recruitment efforts relied on sharing the application on social media, email blast, attending community events such as RCTA events, and internal and external partners. I would like to thank MOPD and Access Living for sharing the application to the community and helping in the recruitment efforts. Furthermore, I wanted to share a little bit more on CTA news and a little bit of what Malik said. In the past 4 weeks, we've had a pandemic era ridership high, which brings the weekday ridership average above 900,000. So this is the first time since February 2020. The week of September 20, we were up 10% from the previous year, reaching more than 5.5 million weekly riders. Both bus and rail ridership that week increased over our 2021 levels. We attribute this to our K-12 ridership on CTA average, which is 68,000 daily riders on weekdays during the week of September 12th, an increase of 6% compared to the same week last year. Our college students enrolled in the UPass program also returned to the system in large numbers, with average weekday ridership reaching 65,000. And this presents a 16% increase over the same week last year. So our highest daily ridership to date being September 16th with 935,000 riders. We are inching that million, which would compare to our pre-pandemic levels. And that's all I have for facilitators report.
Thank you so much, Irma. That's really exciting news. I want to open it up to any of the members. If anyone has a question for Irma about her report. Okay, thank you so much, Irma. That's really good news. Thank you. So next on the itinerary is old business. I want to ask members if there is any old business that they would like to discuss at the moment.
This is Mary. I was wondering if Irma or Michael could arrange a report on that project we heard about last year to have all the trains stop at the very end of the platform. I forgot the technical name. Is that called berthing? But I thought it was such a great idea. I was just wondering if we're going to do that.
Thank you, Mayor.
I'll be glad to jump in. As far as I know, there's been no activity on that in the last year since we presented some material to you folks. But let me circle back with the folks in facilities and rail operations, and then I'll get you a report for the next committee meeting, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mary. Is there anybody else who would like to bring up any old business? Okay, and so we can move right along to new business. Is there a member who would like to bring up any particular topic or issue to be added to the January 2023 meeting agenda?
This is Doreen from MOPD, and I just want to make sure that January 2023 we can recap everything that goes on at the walkthrough of the Western Station, and then if there's any updates at that time, also if that can that whole thing can be a whole separate agenda item.
Yes, thank you, Doreen. Yes, with the information that we get from that walkthrough, I'm hoping to put together a little presentation, especially share the photographs and documentation. So yes, I'll make sure to pass out on, make sure that it goes on the agenda.
Okay, and then also if there's any updates of the previous walkthroughs we've done, we did one of a bus at Jefferson Park, and then we did one of the train car. The one at the bus was, I believe it was last June, something, or July, I don't remember. But then we did one of the train, and that was last October. And if there's any updates on the feedback from those.
Thank you, Doreen. Do we know if we've gotten any feedback from that, Irma?
So I know Robert.
I know we all provided feedback at both, for the bus and for the rail car, for both of them. But was there any response to our feedback? That's the question of the day.
Robert Kilba was present in our last meeting, and he basically walked us through what came from the 7,000 rail car updates and questions that you and suggestions that you all had. So that was done already.
Okay.
Thank you, Doreen. And thank you, Irma. Does anybody have any other questions or anything that they would like to bring up for the next meeting agenda?
This is Laura. I do have a question. I'm sorry if this isn't the right spot for it. But I was wondering, especially given the most recent incident, if CTA was looking at maybe like some structural changes to the stations to make it more difficult for people to fall or jump onto the tracks. I know in other countries they've kind of done that. And I know there have been, they've looked at expenses in New York, but if they were looking at investigating expenses here, to add it to when stations, especially when stations are renovated, to be more accessible, to also do that as well. So just wanted to kind of ask about that.
Thank you, Laura. I too will also be interested in that as well. I've seen other stations where they put up guards, and they're like different. I've seen different ways that have been kind of outfitted. Yes, I would like to know that as well. Does anybody else have any other questions or additions that they would like to place for the January 2023 meeting agenda? Okay, and so it looks like if there's no more questions, we can move over to the adjournment of the meeting. I just want to announce before we go into the motion and the voting, I want to state that it is that our next meeting is Monday, January 9th, 2023, Monday, January 9th, 2023. And our 2023 meeting dates are as follows: January 9th, April 10th, July 10th, and October 9th. So please put that on your calendar. And I also want to let it be stated that it will be known at a later time at which format the next meeting will be held, either virtual, Zoom, or physically at the CTA headquarters. That decision is still pending, so please be on the lookout for that information as it comes out. Okay, so I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn. Do I have anybody?
Robertson motions to adjourn.
Okay, Nicholas adjourns, and do I have a second?
I'll second that. This is Mary.
Thank you, Mary. Okay, and then do an overall vote. Everybody in favor, oppose, or abstain from the adjournment? In favor?
Yay, yes.
Awesome. That sounds like a favor to me. Any opposed? Any abstain? Coolness. Okay, so it sounds like we're all in favor. And then I just want to state that the time right now is 3:17. Thank you everybody for joining in today. Thank you for all the presenters. Thank you for all the facilitators for taking time out today to be here. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you all in January next year.
Before we close off, can I propose a round of applause for our new chairman here? Thank you, Whitney. Great job. Great job.
Thank you so much. This was an honor, and this was pretty fun too. So thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye. You guys have a good one.
Great job, Whitney.